We've all heard the word gaslighting, but few people truly understand what it looks like when it's happening to them. So, let's break it down. Gaslighting is when someone quietly starts to distort your reality. It's not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's gentle, almost invisible, like someone slowly rewriting the story of your life until you begin to question your own memory. You remember something clearly, they say it never happened. You express how you feel, they say you're overreacting. Not to debate you, but to make you doubt yourself. That's how it works. One denial at a time. One small rewrite. Until eventually, you start believing them more than you believe your own mind. Gaslighting doesn't destroy you overnight. It chips away at you. And before you know it, you're second-guessing everything. What you saw, what you felt, what you know is true. It happens everywhere. In relationships, families, even workplaces. The pattern is always the same. Confusion, doubt, silence. Because once they make you question your own reality, they don't need to control you directly. You'll start controlling yourself. So, what can you do? You get clear. Write things down. Trust how something made you feel, even if someone else tries to twist it. You don't need anyone's approval to believe your own experience. The moment you stop explaining yourself to someone who pretends not to understand, that's when you reclaim your power. Now let's talk about something that feels good, but isn't. Love bombing. It's not love. It's manipulation disguised as affection. At first, it feels magical, intense, overwhelming. You're suddenly the center of someone's world. They can't get enough of you. They text constantly. They call every night. They shower you with compliments, gifts, attention, everything you've ever wanted. It's intoxicating. And that's the danger. Because love bombing isn't about genuine care. It's about control. They move fast because they want you hooked before you notice the cracks. Then one day, it shifts. The warmth disappears. The messages slow down. They start pulling away, and you start wondering, what did I do wrong? You try to win back the version of them that once adored you, but that version was never real. It was bait. So how do you protect yourself? You slow things down. You ask questions. You pay attention to patterns, not promises. Real love takes time. It grows quietly, not in a rush. If someone tries to build something serious before trust even has the chance to exist, it's not love, it's a performance. And you don't owe anyone an encore. It's one of the quietest, sneakiest ways people try to control you. And the tricky part, it rarely looks like manipulation. No yelling, no confrontation, just a sigh, a long pause, a soft, well, after everything I've done for you. They don't have to say much because you already feel it. That subtle wave of guilt, that little voice in your head whispering, did I just disappoint them? That's how guilt tripping works. It doesn't attack your actions, it attacks your conscience. It makes you feel like you failed in some invisible way, even when all you did was set a boundary, even when you were just taking care of yourself. Suddenly, your kindness turns into a kind of currency, something you owe back. And the more empathetic you are, the easier it hits. You notice the silence, the tension, the disappointment. And before you know it, you're apologizing for something you never did, or saying yes when your whole body wanted to say no. It happens everywhere, in families, relationships, friendships, and it always has the same goal. I'll make you feel bad for disagreeing. So, how do you stop it? You pause, you breathe, and you ask yourself, did I actually do something wrong? Real guilt comes from your own values. Manipulated guilt, that's someone else's way of keeping control. You don't owe anyone access to your peace just because they made you feel bad for protecting it. Hold your boundary, even if someone else tries to punish you for it. Now let's talk about another subtle control move. Triangulation. It happens when someone pulls a third person into a conflict, turning what should have been a direct conversation into a social chess game. It doesn't look like a fight. It looks like a side conversation you were never invited to. You start hearing things like, well, Sarah agrees with me, or everyone thinks you're overreacting. That's not communication, that's strategy. Triangulation creates this illusion that you're outnumbered, that you're the problem. And once that happens, your voice starts to shrink. You start second-guessing yourself. Am I really being unreasonable? Am I the one overreacting? And that's exactly the point. Because when someone triangulates, they're not looking for understanding, they're looking for leverage. They want allies, validation, power. A parent venting to one sibling about another. A partner bringing in an ex or a friend to prove a point. Suddenly, it's not just you versus them, it's you versus a whole narrative. And that's exhausting, because you're no longer resolving an issue, you're fighting to be seen clearly in someone else's story. So, how do you deal with it? You pull the triangle apart. You don't owe explanations to people people who weren't part of the conversation in the first place. You get to decide the tone of your own dialogue. And if someone refuses to meet you in that space of honesty, you're allowed to step out of the triangle completely. That's not walking away from the problem. That's walking back to your peace. The white knight looks like a hero, the one who shows up with answers, concern, and solutions, even when you never asked for help. At first, it feels nice. It feels like someone finally gets you. It's like they're stepping in because they care. But in toxic dynamics, that's just the setup. Because the white knight doesn't just fix problems, they create them. They'll stir up conflict behind the scenes, chip away at your confidence, and then comfort you when you start to break. They'll whisper that someone's turning against you and then offer to protect you from it. They build the fire, then show up with the hose. Why? Because being the rescuer gives them power. And if you didn't need saving, they'd have no purpose. It's sneaky because it looks like love. It looks like care, but their help always comes with strings attached. They don't want you strong. They want you dependent. They don't want you healed. They want you grateful. And the moment you start standing on your own, setting boundaries, or solving things yourself, they pull back. They get cold, distant, maybe even turn it around on you, like you're the ungrateful one. So how you deal with it? You start seeing the pattern. Ask yourself, do they really step up when things go wrong? Or do they quietly push things toward going wrong just so they can step in and save the day? Real support helps you rise. A white knight needs you to stay small. You don't need to be rescued. You just need space to stand on your own. Silence can be peaceful. It can be calm, grounding, necessary. But the silent treatment, that's not peace. That's punishment. It's what happens when someone uses absence to control you. They don't yell. They don't explain. They just go quiet, cold, distant, unreachable, and they stay that way until you break. The silent treatment isn't about taking space. It's about holding power. You start replaying every word, wondering what you did wrong. You feel that pressure to fix things, even when you don't know what things actually are. That uncertainty is the hook, because when someone refuses to communicate, you're left guessing. And sooner or later, your entire focus shifts from what you need to how to get them to speak again. You apologize just to end the silence. You tiptoe around them, not because you're guilty, but because the quiet hurts. And that's exactly the point. The silence says, I decide when this relationship feels safe. I decide when you're seen. If I withdraw, you'll come chasing. So how do you stop it? You stop chasing the noise. You call it out. Say, if you're upset, I'm open to talking, but I won't be punished with silence. Then you stand your ground, because real communication goes both ways. And if someone only speaks when you surrender, they're not trying to connect. They're trying to control. Breadcrumbing is what happens when someone gives you just enough to keep you around, but never enough to actually move forward. They'll text you, hey, every few days, react to your stories, drop a random compliment, just enough to remind you they exist, but never enough to build anything real. Plans? Always soon. Commitment? Always not yet. It's all vague, delayed, and just out of reach. It's emotional clickbait. You keep checking your phone hoping this time it'll be different. That maybe now they'll actually show up. But they don't, they just drop another crumb. Because the goal of breadcrumbing isn't connection, it's control. It keeps you emotionally invested while they stay completely unaccountable. You get stuck in a loop. Anticipation, disappointment, repeat. And even though you know it's one-sided, it's hard to walk away because they never really end it either. They don't reject you, they stall you. And that uncertainty keeps you hooked. You start waiting for messages that never come, checking your phone at 2 a.m., telling yourself that maybe, just maybe, this time will be different. So how do you stop it? You stop chasing the trail. If someone's interest only shows up in flashes, if they keep you guessing more than they keep you grounded, you don't need to decode their mixed signals. You just need to decide that it's not enough, because consistency will always speak louder than charm, and you deserve more than crumbs. Darvo is one of the most disorienting manipulation tactics out there, and once you know how it works, you'll start seeing it everywhere. Darvo stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. It's basically psychological sleight of hand, a way for someone to flip the entire story the moment you hold them accountable. Here's how it goes. You bring up something that hurt you, calmly, respectfully, hoping for an honest talk. Step 1. They deny it. That never happened. You're remembering it wrong. You're too sensitive. Step 2. They attack. They go after your tone, your timing, your character. Suddenly, the conversation isn't about what they did. It's about how you brought it up. And then comes the flip. They make themselves the victim. Now you're the one being cruel. They say things like, I can't do anything right, or you're always blaming me. And just like that, the focus shifts. They hurt you, but you're the one apologizing. That's Darvo. It's not just emotional manipulation, it's full-blown narrative control. It turns accountability into an illusion where the person responsible gets to play the hero, the martyr, or the victim, whatever makes them look like the wounded one. And if you're on the receiving end, it's confusing. You start second-guessing your memory, your tone, your truth. You start defending your delivery instead of the facts. So how do you deal with it? You don't take the bait. When the conversation suddenly becomes all about their pain, pause and bring it back. Say, I'm willing to talk about this, but not if the original issue keeps getting buried. Darvo thrives on confusion. It dies in clarity. Because accountability isn't an attack, and telling the truth isn't cruelty.